to the second part of this amazing Red Pill Nation episode that I'm having with my dear friend, trauma therapist Maya Siag. When I went to the West Bank and you see this massive wall and you get these ghetto vibes, and you see that they have scarcity of water. I remember our tour guide, who also needs to be undercover because he's an enemy for Hamas for doing this kind of tours and also for Israel. So it's like homeless people in the sense of like they're homeless ideologically from a support. And he said to us, notice one thing, the houses that have these horrible black tanks on the top versus the houses that don't. You know what's the difference? These are Palestinian neighborhoods. These are Israeli neighborhoods. So if you control the water, which is a basic resource, it happens also in the ghetto. And also the fact that in the West Bank, that had nothing to do with October 7. 300,000 Palestinians have lost their jobs since October 7 because they're not allowed anymore to go inside Jerusalem or other parts. So you are robbing these people from water, from work.
Yes.
Of course, terrorism is going to sound like an amazing opportunity. This is what happens in Central America.
Actually, I would call it survival.
Survival, yes.
They call it terrorism. It's survival.
Yeah.
People want to survive. They want water. I mean, what's more important than water?
Yes.
And how do we become terrorists if we are looking for water sources? I mean, historically, as cavemen, the first thing we needed is water. The first thing we look for is water.
Yep. And so when I saw that, I'm like, these people are inbreeding their, and I posted that. I said, like, you are engaging your bully. You are torturing your bully. What do you think is going to happen? But then on the other side, when we talk about justice, I want to challenge you with two ideas about justice. The first one, after the genocide of China under Mao Zedong, 60 million Chinese people dead because of these communist rules where everything became scarce, to the point that Chinese people ate their own fetuses, literally because of the hunger. 60 million people die. Mao Zedong is down. The Cultural Revolution is a complete disaster. And then Deng Xiaoping comes in. And Deng Xiaoping comes with this Western mentality of, let me send engineers to Europe so they can learn how to do, electricity plants and this and that. But he also focused on something that for me was very draconian the first time that I read about it, because he forced all the generals, all the military, like in a Nuremberg trial kind of situation, all the military who were involved in the genocide, he forced them, and there's videos about this, he forced them to ask for apologies, written apologies, and admitting to their crimes before they could enter the new administration. The people who were not willing to do that, gone. And that was in a very Chinese express way, let's call it like that, the way to make justice and move forward, right? Similar situations have happened in Japan with the samurais, etc., etc. And then there's the other side of justice. Once I was talking with this Canadian lawyer, and he was explaining to me how in Canada, when the Americans did the prohibition of the alcohol, there were a lot of mafias in Canada that were supplying alcohol and other drugs to the United States. In the moment that the United States takes away the prohibition, Canada is faced with all these criminals and this mafia, and they didn't know what to do. And I asked the lawyer, so what do you do? And he's like, we did nothing, Gloria. Because literally, Canada didn't have the judicial system capable of putting all those people into jail. They were very powerful and they were very millionaire. And so what we did was we just let them be. And they became the grandparents of our doctors, our lawyers, our psychologists, our elite society. By the way, he said to me, the same like in the States that happened to the Kennedys. I put you these two extreme examples because when we talk about justice, how does justice look like?
So that is not even for me to say. That is for the people of the land to talk about it. And I think we need our communities, people who suffered the most, people who lost their loved ones, their homes, their lands, people who lost their years, their lives in prisons. These are the ones we need to ask, what does justice look like to you?
Mm.
Of course, we have general ideas of what justice looks like from, international laws and human rights. Yeah, we do abide by that, but we still need to ask the people.
You were saying to me that one of the things that impresses you about Mexico is the freedom of movement. And you were like, fuck, man, maybe if Palestinians were free to come and go, they wouldn't be thinking about.
Yes, again, imagination.
Yeah.
They cannot, there is a lot of restrictions by Israel on the Palestinian to move. They cannot move from one city to another.
Mhm.
And here you move across continent, a whole continent you can move. You can go from this place, live in another, and see so many different cultures, so many different religions, so many different colors, so many different ways of living,
Mhm.
that you become more open. You become curious. If not open, just curious, just raising curiosity. The more we are closed in our own culture, our own ideas, our own values, and I'm not saying we need to get rid of them, just to know that there are other ways of living that exist,
Mhm.
just to be tolerant and curious and open is not either or that or. There are many, many, many colors to life.
Yeah. There's a difference in between cities like New York City, where you have the Korean quarter, the Italian
No.
quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Arab quarter, but then they all coexist in a city that is multicultural. That's one thing. The other thing is like Cubans cannot go anywhere. North Koreans cannot go anywhere. Like if you imprison people, that's a different mentality, right? Because
Yes.
there's no freedom. And then, but then the cycle continues. But it's like, well, if I give them freedom, they're gonna use them to attack me. I heard this argument a couple of times, and they were like, with the amount of money that Gaza received during the years, they could be the Singapore of the Middle East, and they decided to use that money to terrorize us. To be honest, because I come from Latin America and I know how shitty favelas look, when I went to Ramallah or when I see pictures of how Gaza was, I'm like, this looks like an upper middle class country, for Latin American or India, even, concepts. But at the same time, this argument that I have heard it many times in Latin America, you cannot give people freedom because they're too stupid or too dangerous to be free. And it's something that also applies to the Middle East. It's like, well, if we leave them free, they're going to kill us all.
Well, this is the Israeli narrative that they use to brainwash their own people, to keep them in that idea, to keep them in military and to oppress them more and more, and to keep them scared. Because as long as the Israelis are scared, the government is ruling.
For sure.
They don't allow them even to go to the West Bank.
Yes.
There are Israelis who's never met a Palestinian. They only hear about a Palestinian.
I asked about this because in Jerusalem, the quarters are so narrow
Yes.
that I'm like, how do you prevent when a little Muslim kid is going to school and there's the Christian kid and there's the Jewish kid and they're both walking in the same street?
Well,
how do you forbid them to talk or play with each other when kids are kids? And they're like, they learn not to talk with
yeah,
each
but
other.
there's also surveillance. Like if you paid attention in Jerusalem, there are cameras everywhere. Every move is calculated. And that's Jerusalem, and it's not a big population. But in the West Bank, you have a whole generations also that never seen an Israeli civilian.
Yeah.
The only Israeli they see is in a military uniform. That's their idea of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
Just the same as for some little Jewish kids, the only image of a German was a Nazi in a
yes,
uniform because that's the only
yes,
thing they saw.
yes.
And there was something that really confronted me when we were going to the West Bank. Because a lot of Israelis that were in my program were not allowed to go to the West Bank. So they're not even allowed to see the reality that their government is creating,
Yes.
which I think is very fucked up in its own way. But there were a lot of Jewish Americans who could go, and they decided not to. And
Yeah.
they didn't go to the West Bank.
Yes.
And they didn't go to see some of the things that we were exposed to. And I was like, how unfair, man, because there are Israelis that are dying for this opportunity. And you feel that you even have the honor of being the eyes and the ears of someone that just cannot go. Just like you now going to Cuba, like I'm dying to go to Cuba, to the land of my father. And I know that I can't
Yes.
because I would get in trouble. But you, as a Palestinian, you are okay to go. Like,
And we have 7 million refugees, Palestinian refugees, that are dying to go back to their homes, and they are still having the keys, these big, big keys to their old doors. Now we have the fourth generation, and they're still holding to that key, hoping one day to go back.
yeah.
So, yeah, you can find now when we speak about justice, anywhere in the world, you say, I'm Jewish, you go to the embassy, they tell you, welcome to Israel, and have a nationality and have citizenship, and you're welcome to live here. Palestinians, we have millions of refugees who were there, and now they cannot return. And this is a right that they're fighting for, which is not even part of the negotiations. We're not talking about this anymore. But they're still living in refugee camps in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Syria, in so many places, and they are not integrated. They are living in places like Lebanon. They don't even have access to certain jobs that you can study medicine, but you cannot be a doctor in Lebanon if you're Palestinian. So these people are still waiting for their right to return.
The feeling that I got when I came back, I was devastated, heartbroken. As I tell you, I got so sick. I still had a hard time integrating. And my one thought was, this status quo is just not sustainable. That was one of my conclusions, like what I just saw is just not sustainable. 2 days later, the bombings in Iran. And I was like, the status quo changed. Now everything that I lived is ancient history compared to what's going on there, because that's also another reality that is so foreign to us in the Western world. Sure, you can have some of it with the cartel violence or the gang violence, but we have land and we have expansion.
Yes.
Over there, it's like here, everything is happening there.
Yes.
So a thing that I realized was, okay, the Tel Aviv that I was in, where I saw all these Israelis laughing at the alarms because they were missiles from Yemen, in 2 days, complete different reality. Those same Tel Avivians now are terrified going to shelters because they're getting a taste of what Gaza has been like for 2 years. And you're like, it is mind-blowing. It's like unplugging from the matrix and taking a red pill after a red pill after a red pill, every time. It's so complex. And I want also to talk about your personal story as whatever you're comfortable with, how you want to share it, because the reason you can go to a conference like MAPS, the reason you do the work that you do is because although this injustice, although this seclusion, you have found your way as a woman to liberate yourself in an astounding and very brave way. And you told me a story on how was the first time that you got unplugged from the matrix. When you said, like, wait a minute, the system is not like they sold it to me. I would like you to share a little bit about your past in whatever capacity is comfortable and safe for you, because that's the other thing,
Yeah. So I grew up in the times of the first Intifada. And yeah, there were, it's not a war. I don't know even if it's a conflict. It's Intifada, and we cannot call it or explain it in any other ways. But in our small neighborhoods, we had Israeli army raiding. So we would be out playing in the neighborhood. And all of a sudden, you hear that the Israelis are coming. So everyone starts running home. The mothers will come out of the houses to grab the teenagers, the male teenagers, because these were the main targets for Israelis, to beat them, to jail them, imprison them. So one day, I was there when that happened, and it was a big one. I remember that everyone was running around. And I think I was 4, 5 years old. And I was at the center of all of it. And right there was a teenager who's a friend of my brother and an Israeli soldier. Now, that teenager was so nice. I knew him. Masculine teenagers are not very nice to little girls. But that specific one was, was super nice to me. And I loved him. So he was there, and the Israeli soldier in front of him, and I'm just down looking up at them when I see the Israeli soldier punching him in the stomach. As he holds his stomach, he smacks him in the face. And this is when reality was shattered, the world as I know it was shattered. I was like, it wasn't a why or how. There was like, what is this new reality? For children, the rules are, punishment, reward.
Yes.
You're good, you're rewarded. You're bad, you're punished. Now, this is a good person, and he didn't do anything because I was there. I saw he hasn't done anything. So why is he beaten like that? And nothing happened about it. He continued beating him, and probably he took him. I don't know what happened. I was there mesmerized, opening my eyes to a new reality where I knew probably there is nothing called justice. And I learned this at a very, very early age. Now, I'm not saying that to depress people. I'm saying because I learned that at an early age, I want to prove me wrong. And I want to see more justice in the world. I want to see more. And I know the way to justice is through healing. When we heal, when we feel safe, then I will know that you're just human like me. Then we are equal. Then I don't accept something for you that I don't accept for myself. And this is when justice will prevail through healing. And I don't know if this is going to happen in my lifetime, but I'm going to keep working towards it.
Because you have also been a rebel of your own environment. You're not the typical Palestinian woman that accepts.
So this is the Palestinian context, the Arab context as well. So, and I don't like to cover that and put it under the rug, because as Arab societies, we do have our own problems. I mean, it's not just the occupation, it's not just politics. We have problems from our cultures, from our values, from our system, from our patriarchal societies. So women, don't have all the freedom they want or need, or is already granted in many parts of the world.
That's the thing. Justice and liberty are exceptions. They're not the rule.
Yes.
And we need to start treating them like that. Even in the West prides itself by being the liberators of everybody. Dude, the history of the West is full of slavery, machismo, elitism, colonialism. But the moments that we leave each other alone, and there's liberty, and there's peace, and there's renaissance, and there's scientific revolutions and innovations, wow, those decades are amazing. And that was something that they taught me in the reality program. They said, listen, this family that is making this program since 2002, which, by the way, I was the last of it. For the nearest future, they canceled everything because of the new context. So I was like, wow. They say, we don't even know if the change is going to be in our lifetime.
Yeah.
We're just planting the seeds so that maybe another generation gets a little moment of peace. And when we were there, I remember that a friend of mine tells me, being a woman everywhere is really hard. Like almost everywhere in the world, if you're a woman, you're not going to be listened to. But then she told me, I cannot stop thinking of the women in Gaza. Because right now, the women in Gaza, they don't have a vote, they don't have a voice. Like the context that is upon them, they didn't choose it. Women are not the ones sitting in the tables making the decisions. They're not listened by Hamas, and they for sure are not listened by Netanyahu or the Israelis. They are just homeless in that sense. But they are the mothers that are losing children every day. They are highly traumatized. And those are the new realities that we're going to have to face. Because on top of them, and the same happens in Latin America, by the way. We complain a lot that the Spanish came here 500 years ago, and we complain that the Americans are always like messing with our politics. Within that context, we have our own problems. I come from a country where being an indigenous girl is punished by you don't get education and you have to marry someone and you're not allowed to have your own money. That's the reality. So I understand those layers. And for you, you hold so many compassions at the same time because you rebel yourself from your current context, from your own family, but you also don't accept the Israeli imposition. You went to Europe. You could have escaped all of this. Why didn't you? Why didn't you just say, okay, now I'm in Europe, I'm safe, I escaped? Why the need to get in so much trouble?
Oh my God. Maybe it's my trauma. I'm wired for trouble.
And now you
No.
came. I know you came to Mexico for that.
No, it's I know the situation is so complex, but I believe healing is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Back to imagination. We cannot, if we allow ourselves to think, yes, it's possible. And I was stuck in that cycle for years before knowing how easy it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was stuck like, no, there's no justice. The world is not okay. This is not okay. I'm not okay. People are not okay. People are evil. I was stuck in all that because I suffered. I projected my suffering on the whole world. I did not trust people. I did not allow people to love me because I didn't trust them. Now that I experience this, now that I know it's a possibility, that I've been in such a dark place and I suffered, not just I was in a dark place because of my own thoughts. No, things really happened in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I could break free from it. I could heal. I managed.
Yep.
I know it is possible. I would like to know, and I would like to let as many people as possible know also that it is possible, that we can actually heal, we can be better, we can feel better, we can achieve peace first here, then in the world. But first, it starts here. Once we have it here, it's much easier. Once we feel safe. Because I know that, back to your question, why when I was in Europe, I did not stay there. Because I carried my trauma and unsafety with me wherever I went. If I don't feel safe in my own body, I will never feel safe anywhere until I work on my issues and liberate myself. This is when, even in a place like Palestine, everyone is like, why you go there? There's a war. I feel safe in my own body. I'm trusting.
Yeah.
Of course, there is war, but I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting the mission. I'm trusting my vision. And I'm trusting that I'm on the right path.
Yeah. There's a thing that all self help books talk about, and it's the importance of being in the present, right? Be in the present, because if you're in the past, you're depressed. And
It's very good if you can do it.
no, totally. That's why you meditate and plant medicine and blah blah blah. But the premise is this one, and I want to contrast with something that I saw over there. be in the present, because if you're in the past, you're depressed, and if you're in the future, you're anxious. So the good place to be is in the present. Turns out that when you're in a war zone, you are fucking in the present because there's nowhere else to be. It's like it's so immediate that at one moment you were on a shelter, panicking, and 10 minutes later, you're celebrating life because life is here and it's now. And one thing that I loved from both cultures is that they are zero politically correct. They are direct to the point because there's no time to waste, right? So, if all the psychology advice, the meditation, the Vedic, the neuroscience, finally they all agree in things like this, in maps and stuff like that, that being in the present is the most healing thing that you can do, this obsession with the past and the scripture that in the Bible says that this land is ours and we are the chosen people. No, wait a minute. We are the chosen. There's this obsession with what the history says 5,000 years ago. And I believe that instead of allowing people to be in the present and look at the present as it is, which the present is this one, there are Palestinians and Israelis living right now there. The possibility of both extremes, which is let's wipe half of them, and the other extreme, which is let's wipe half of them, honestly, is not even realistic. It's not even realistic because the logistics in order to do that, of course, it can work in Gaza, but it's not sustainable. Just like it was not sustainable for Hugo Chavez to have all the Venezuelan people in a horrible famine. It was not going to be sustainable. It's sustainable for a couple of years. So, this historicism, which is what the West values a lot, like who wrote what in when and who is the owner of what, I believe is making justice and peace a little bit more difficult. Because instead of looking at the present as it is and be like, you know what? Okay, this is the history, but this is the now, the power of now. This is what we have now in this land. Today, Donald Trump goes out and says, these are two countries, referring to Iran and Israel, that they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
It's disgusting.
Literally, those were his words. The leader of the free world, referring to these nations. If you go to someone, and this is what I told my friend Miriam when she invited me to reality, she was like, please come. And I'm like, Miriam, I don't know if I'm the person for this. I ask the uncomfortable questions. Like these people are in trauma. When you're in trauma, you're not, allowed to respond correctly. And she's like, that's why we need you there. And then you go there and you see that if you tell people when it's not time yet that they need to get out of their grieving cycle to live in the now, because that's the only way that you're going to move forward. Where do you start? Do you start with the children? Do you start with the adults? Because I saw more readiness for justice and peace in this woman in the kibbutz and this lady in the Holocaust survivor than in places where people are more involved in the war. But I don't know where do you see that like you can start?
So the thing with being in the present and witnessing in the present, what's happening in the present is that people are so hyper vigilant. And we cannot actually take that out of the historical context that led them to be hyper vigilant. After years and years of being under attack, that's it. You're just hyper vigilant. Your alarm is working all the time, checking where danger is. And that's why you see that they are high achievers. They are fast, they are quick, they're always on alarm, very awake. They're not relaxing.
No.
They're hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
Now, what hypervigilance does also that we need to understand, hypervigilance means perceiving danger in places that does not exist. And we have triggers.
Yeah.
Like something small happens, like, there is no coffee. oh my God, there is no coffee. And this becomes like a threat. And you become so activated. Your nervous system becomes activated because you perceive that small problem as a threat
Mhm.
because you're so hyper vigilant. Now, many people, because of the ongoingness of this, say that Palestinians never went into PTSD, the post traumatic stress disorder,
Mhm.
because it's ongoing. It's never post. Like with veterans who go to war, then they come home, it's over. So now they have post traumatic
Yeah.
symptoms. But with Palestinians who have been ongoing this violence, undergoing this violence for over 70 years, one generation after the other, their nervous system has shifted now. It's no more wired for safety. It's
Mhm.
wired for unsafety. Safety is not something that is expected. What they expect is violence, attacks, problems, missiles. That's the expectation. And if it doesn't happen, this is great.
Mhm.
Now, that does not mean that we cannot work with them. Because many people confuse it for, if there is no post traumatic, if they are still undergoing trauma, then we cannot work with them. No, we can. We cannot stop the war. We cannot free Palestine today. I wish we can, but we cannot, as at least for me. Maybe it's happening as we are speaking, but I haven't checked the news. But I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
But we can work on stabilizing.
Mhm.
We can work on giving them experiences of safety with many tools, not only with psychedelics. There are many other tools to start wiring them for safety. The more safety we can instill in their bodies,
Yeah.
not only in the minds, it's mainly
Yes.
in the body.
Corporeal. Feel it. Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
this is how they can start healing.
Yeah.
Step by step. Where do we start? With everyone. With everyone. No exceptions. With the adults, with the grannies, with the children, with everyone.
I wanna I wanna finish this podcast thanking you so much, especially for being here in Mexico, Mexico Mágico. I hope it gives you. I've been saying that you have been in a spiritual window shopping for having more tools in that amazing toolkit
Yes.
for
Yes.
mental health and trauma treatment. And I think that Mexico will give you all of that. But one beautiful thing, to end in a very positive note, that I found over there, because for me this war is flesh and bones, it's
Mm.
people like you, it's people. I have friends that are Israeli and that are Iranian. I have you as a Palestinian friend. For me this war is not a tweet, it's not a hashtag, it's real people that I've known
Absolutely.
for 20
Absolutely.
years, you know,
Absolutely.
like since we were like 20 something, studying abroad, and you know, like having the best of lives and the worst of lives at the same time. But it was so beautiful to me that I also found this Israeli friend that I hadn't seen in 20 years. And when I met her, Tamara, in the first time, she was very proud that she came out of the army, you know, like, oh yeah, the
Mm.
army and Israel, and we are the greatest country in the world, and this pride, right? And when I met you in Rome, many of these things were not processed as well, right? I met her in Tel Aviv 3 days before meeting you. You both made an exceptional effort to go and see me for 30 minutes. And that meant the world to me because that meant that no time had passed. And whatever we lived, I met her in a seminar, a libertarian economic seminar in Belgium. And I see her for the first time in 20 years, like I saw you after 17 years. And now she's a mother. She has 3 kids. I never mentioned her that that you were my friend or vice versa. And all my life I thought if these two women would meet, probably they would kill each other, but they would be the best of friends in another context. And when I met her there, and we start, you know, catching up, and what are you doing here, and blah blah blah, and it's so good to see you. And she's like, Gloria, my government failed me, and as a libertarian, the fact that my government couldn't give me security, justice, rule of law, and above all, honesty, I am so disappointed. And I remember having a conversation with her when we were like 20s and when we met. And I said, Tamara, I don't get it. Why would you live in a place where nobody likes you, man? I come from communist runaways. I come from people where like Hungarian and Cuban that were like, you know what? This place is a disaster. Let me grab my bags. I will go. Like it's in my DNA to run when I'm not liked. I don't have that. I don't have those roots. In fact, the Cuba of my grandparents don't exist anymore. The Hungary also is now is Transylvania. Now is Romania. I come from places that don't even exist. So this love with the land, you know, and I remember that she told me in the 20s. She's like, no, because the land. 20 years later, she's telling me, I am done. I am done. I am not the one making these political decisions. I don't have to be the one suffering this reality. My little girl, and she says, my little girl, Maya. And I was like, no fucking way. Her daughter name is Maya. I was like mind blown, you know? And she says to me, my little girl, Maya, she's in shock. Every time she listens to sirens, she goes stiff, like fight, fly, or freeze. I am done, Gloria. And my government failed me, and I want to leave. And I'm planning to go to the United States. I don't even know if the United States is a good idea because everyone is hating us right now in the world. And it broke my heart. And I've been in touch with her, and she's terrified by what is happening, which is a new reality than the one that I left. 3 days later, I see you, and you're like, oh, what are you doing in this program? Both of you, both these beautiful, cherishable women that I met so many years ago, instead of becoming more intolerant and having your heart full of hatred, both of you gave me hope. And then she said to me, I quit politics. I don't know how you can do that libertarian shit. I'm done with that. You know what I became? I became a doctor. And by doing medicine, I treat Arabs, I treat Palestinians, I treat atheists, I treat Israelis, because I know that by doing medicine, I'm doing good no matter what. This for me, Maya, was mind-blowing.
Yes.
And then when I met you, I was like, you know what? It's my little hope in the world. It's not the big context.
Yes.
But it's my context. And if that context can be possible for more people, let's hope it can. I'm really grateful that you sat down because I know you were very nervous. But I really want to tell you that your story matters and it's very unique. Never lose that from sight because there are so many women that don't have the privilege of having a microphone and sharing the story. Thank you so much.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. Yes, it's very much out of my comfort zone. As I said, I'm a therapist, I'm a listener, I'm not a speaker. I'm so good at listening, not at speaking.
You did a great job.
One more thing I want to say that, you know, I don't know when this podcast is going to be broadcasted, but now we are witnessing the Iran-Israel war, and I'm actually stranded. I cannot go back home because the airports are closed. But I want to thank you and all the friends around you that became my friends, because I don't feel stranded. I just feel home. And that's what it is. Home is not a place, is not a land. It's humans connecting with each other. Once we find our tribe, once we can connect to each other, this is home. It's not the stones, it's not the soil. It's the souls. So thank you so much.
I love you. This has been all in Red Pill from Universidad de la Libertad, Mexico City. Until next time.